Hello, everyone. My name is Jane Orlov, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Monday Mentorship Call. I'm so excited to welcome everyone to the call tonight, and thank you for joining and spending your valuable time by listening to what I have to say today. And today we will be talking about the most important topic and the most important aspect of our lives, in my opinion. And I will share a little bit about what changed my mindset, which helped me completely change my life. And also I'll share with you some scientific studies and proofs of how actually the science of it works and the neurological connections in our mind work and how it affects our everyday life, our decision making, our beliefs, our habits, our thoughts, and everything that we do on a regular basis, as well as business, as well as health. So I wanted to share with you, if you can picture that our mind is like a computer program. And once we're born, we absorb all the information around us, from people around us, from the authorities around us, our parents, our teachers, our church leaders, the news that we watch on TV, the books that we read, the programs that we watch and listen to on the radio, on the background, when we drive, everything. Everything is absorbed through our ears into our mind, and it gets stored in different files. And it creates our beliefs, it creates our habits, and that's how we make our decisions based on our experiences and emotions. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about my story. I came from Russia when I was 17 years old. I skipped most of the school in Russia because I had allergies. I dropped out of college once I got to the United States because it was very expensive. I started cleaning homes and I couldn't continue because of my allergies. Bothered me, all the pet dander and pollen and dust bothered me, so I stopped doing that. I got married, had kids, and basically was a stay-at-home mom. At that time, my programming was very negative. I was very pessimistic. I was thinking of myself as very dumb because I didn't have traditional education. I hated my voice because it sounded very nasal to me. I basically was constantly looking in the mirror and hating the way that I looked, and didn't believe that anything was possible for me because I was not educated. I didn't have a resume to show for and get a good job and things like that. Then I was interested in real estate, and we had a few houses that when the housing market crashed, we lost everything, went through bankruptcy. I went through a divorce at the same time. I was devastated, and basically everything had going on for my life that everything is basically falling apart and there's nothing going on. At that time, I was introduced to network marketing, and I really started reading other people's stories and believing in the personal development, and I really got into believing that we can create our own reality, and if we change our mindset, and if we start acting as our leaders were acting, with more courage and things like that, everything would change. However, it took me a long, long time to reprogram my mindset. And I wanted to share with you all the scientific studies that, from different scientists and different doctors, how our emotions and how our thoughts are acting in our brains, basically. Like I mentioned, every emotion that we feel creates a cocktail in our nervous system. And basically it releases different hormones that makes us feel a certain way and we get addicted to a feeling a certain way, and then we think certain thoughts, and majority of it happens on autopilot. So I wanted to look at my notes here from the interview that I took from several different people, and one person was actually a scientist, and he was studying genes and how genes affect our health. And that is basically, I forgot his name, but the most important thing that I wrote down is that basically when we feel a certain emotion like fear, or we feel devastation, it creates a certain neurological connection in our brain. So if you, as he was explaining here, if you're a human cell, you are not out in the world, you are underneath the skin, and there are 50 trillion cells that live in our body, and they have to adjust to their biology inside of us. And our cells, they adjust the biology through the perception of our nervous system. So basically, it comes down to our blood is sending information to the brain and to the cells, whether these hormones are feeling, if we're feeling good or bad. And he was given an example on when people are in love, they're releasing feel-good hormones, hormones of love, and they feel healthier because their whole body is releasing those growth hormone, and the whole body actually functions better. But when we're fearful and when we were sad and when we are stressed, there's a completely different chemistry that is released in our blood to the brain, and basically the immune system shuts down, and it doesn't produce any, when you're stressed, it goes back to the caveman days, when you feel a rush of adrenaline when you're in a stressful situation, if you have to run away from an animal. So basically the immune system shuts down and you feel queasy and you feel that butterflies in the stomach feeling, that it's a sign of the immune system is not working properly because it creates that stress. And it is designed to create it for a short period of time, and then you get back to normal. And however, currently in our days, we are feeling stress constantly, and that actually has a huge effect on the immune system shutting down, and people get more and more sick when they're bombarded with fearful news, with fearful emotions. And so in order to change that, I'll give you a few examples. What was talked about in the interview with Dr. Dispenza, that is a different doctor, so I'll share with you what he was talking about, how to change the negative cycle and stop the cycle of different negative thoughts and emotions, and how it will help in your life. And I will give you an example of how it affected me and how I was able to turn that around. So basically, how do we create the long-term memory? We create the long-term memory, different emotional events that happen in our life. If the event is stronger, we remember it longer. So let's say a lot of the people won't remember what they ate for dinner a week ago because it wasn't a very, very emotional event, unless it was like a birthday dinner or a Valentine's dinner or like a very eventful dinner. However, most people would remember where they were and what they were doing and the exact thing that they were doing when they heard the news of the September 11th, because it was such a huge tragedy and a shock. And because you were experiencing such a strong emotion when you heard the news, what was happening, you categorized it in your brain as a very, very important file, and you store it in a different part of your brain, which whenever you recall what was happening, you go back and you remember what exactly you were doing and who you were with and what was happening. That happens exactly the same with the beautiful events when you have a wedding, when you have when you fall in love, when you have a baby, and things like that. So the stronger the emotional reaction you have to some experience in your life, the higher the emotional quotient, and the more you pay attention to that cause. And at the moment, the brain puts all of the attention to the cause, and it takes a snapshot or a picture, and that is called memory. So long-term memories are created from very highly emotional experiences. So what happens then when people thinking neurologically within a circuitry of that experience, and they feel chemically within the boundaries of those emotions. So when you have an emotional reaction with something or someone, most people think they can't control their emotional reaction. Well, it turns out that if you allow that emotional reaction last for hours or days, and that is called refractory period, and that is called the mood. So you feel a certain mood, and then if you have that emotional reaction for longer, then it's called a temperament. And then if it last for longer, for example, you're bitter, or you hold a grudge on someone, you feel that they betrayed you, and you feel like that something was unfair, and you hold that emotion for longer, and you hold it for months, and then it creates a personality trait. So what we have to do is we have to learn how to shorten that period of time, especially if it's a negative feeling. So I'll share an example with you that was a really big aha moment when when I created that emotional feeling when I was a child, and my dad in Russia, he asked me to be home at a particular time, and I didn't get back home, and he spanked me really hard. And he underestimated his power, and I lost control of my bladder, and I couldn't hold my pee, and all my teachers knew that if I didn't have to raise my hand, and I could go to the bathroom anytime I needed to. So that created a very, very powerful emotion. I didn't like my dad very much after that. And I was little, so I created that emotion. Most of our negative emotions or fears we create when we're little children. We create it and we hold it for a long, long period of time. A lot of the time, people hold a certain negative emotions through their whole life, and they blame that person or the experience or what happened to them. A lot of the people who have trauma, who were molested, who were it wasn't their fault what happened to them, but they carry it through whole life and to go through therapy, and a lot of the times people don't ever recover from such tragic events. So when I went to this event and we were doing this exercise that really helped me a lot, the person on stage, the speaker, was holding a piece of paper, and she was asking us what color it was. And we saw a white part of the piece of paper, and we were all saying white. And she was looking at the same piece of paper from her side, and she was saying that it looked black. And we were saying, no, we see white. And she was saying, no, it's black. And then she turned to the audience with that piece of paper, and her side was black. So we were looking at the same piece of paper. The audience was looking from a white side, and she was looking from a black, even though it was the same piece of paper. And that created a really, really powerful effect on me, where we could see the same situation from different perspectives. And she was asking us to put ourselves in the shoes of the person that we hold a grudge on or that we feel like betrayed us. So I was able to, with my adult mind, put myself in my dad's shoes, that if I had a daughter and she wouldn't come back and I thought that something bad happened to her, I would want to punish her, or at least let her know that it's not okay to do that. And it was very unthoughtful of her to do that, and I would want her to prevent it, to do it in the future. And that's the only way I knew how to show my parenting, because that's all the parenting education I could comprehend in my mind, because the way that I was raised. So that's what happened, and I forgave my dad at that time, and it completely changed and relieved such emotions for me. And if you have to forgive someone, or if you are feeling some negative emotions, I highly recommend practice the exercise of forgiveness, because when we hold that negative emotion in our head and in our body, that negative energy creates mental blockages. It prevents us to move forward. A lot of the times we see something, like I'll give you another example. A lot of people have mental blocks about making money or asking for money in exchange for a product or service they offer. And a lot of the times they grew up listening to the parents, and the parents would say, money doesn't grow on trees, it's so hard to earn money, and all the people who have money are greedy, and they're wasting their money. A lot of the times we see examples on through Hollywood where people who have money, they're usually are gathering that money on unethical ways, and even like the Titanic movie where, all the poor people, they were so happy, and they're in one part of the cruise ship, and then all the rich people are so with their noses stuck up, and they're very completely different and rude, and basically don't have any heart or like good emotions, or so those kind of events that we see, it creates, even though when we start network marketing and we want to make money on our conscious level, on our subconscious level, we think we sabotage a lot of the times, because we feel like we would be judged the same way that we judge other people that have a lot of money. And it takes time to rewire the mindset, to, for example, if you start on noticing of people who have money and their good gestures, and you would think of them and try to be really happy for them that it's possible to do, that means that you can achieve the same success and the same situation, and you can help a lot more people when you have funds, and you can, spread the wealth in good cause. So I wanted to go into different exercises that helped me to rewire some of the meaning that I was given to the same situation that happened to me. And I already shared that I hated my boys. I went through bankruptcy. I went through divorce. I also have a short-term memory that I don't really recall a lot of the events long-term, and I didn't have an education. So how I try to change my meaning of the situations is that before, where I was giving the meaning that I had no education and I felt stupid and dumb, now I gave a new meaning, and I was saying, well, I don't have a traditional education. That way I'm more entrepreneurial. I'm not as a society standard, and a lot of the people who are successful didn't have traditional education. So I started seeking out those people who didn't finish high school or college, and they were still became successful. And I'm really good at self-educating and finding information, in different courses and Googling things that I can educate myself on. The divorce situation, before I was thinking I'm a failure as a wife, as a mother, and I was just thinking really negative about that. I had to give a new meaning, and I was starting to believe that everything happens for a reason, and it made me stronger, and it made me believe that, everything happens for a reason, and we can change our life no matter what obstacles come our way. The way that I hated my voice and how it sounded nasal, and I would call someone and I didn't leave a message because I just didn't like the way that my voice sounded. So then I recorded a video and somebody was watching it and they said, "Oh, I like your accent. It sounded very unique." And I thought, well, if one person thought that it was unique, let me focus on that. And I started accepting myself as I am, and I started looking at the mirror and I practicing self-love. And it's not like in Russia, if you are trying to say that you love everything about yourself, it sounds like very like you're a center of the universe, and it's really rude. You should be humble and selfless, and it sounds very selfish. However, I started practicing and accepting every fault that I have, and that I'm enough and I'm good enough, and all the perfections that I was trying to, compare myself to other people that have had, more success and they could have more skill set and everything. I was just saying that I'm good enough and I can learn all the skills that are necessary for me to help other people. And, that I went through bankruptcy. At first I was really devastated, but then I started looking at it that it was a fresh start, and I was lucky enough to live in the United States where all your debt could be forgiven and you're given a fresh new slate to build it over again. Because in Russia, when you do have owe a lot of money, people get killed for that, and I was just blessed to be in the position I was. And that I don't have a very long-term memory, and I only have like a short-term memory where I would make a list, and in my mind I would, okay, you complete this task, and this task, and you check, delete. So I started looking at it positively, that I don't hold grudges, and I remember the things that are important to me, and whatever I don't remember, it doesn't really matter that much. So I was just reprogramming my mind, and to start reprogramming it, your neurological connections. The exercise that helped me is wearing a rubber band on the wrist, and whenever you catch yourself thinking negative and thinking something that does not help you become a better, more positive person, is you have to catch yourself and become aware first and snap the rubber band every time you start thinking a negative thought. And when you create that physical pain, you have to quickly think about something positive instead, so that you can start rewiring your your neurological connections in your brain. And also what helps is meditation, when you slow down and you sit still and you observe your thoughts, instead of always being on autopilot and the TV in the background, or when you're driving, you're listening to the news in the background, because everything absorbs on your subconscious computer program. And I wanted also to talk about reticular activating system. And what it is that I posted a video, if some of you guys already saw it probably, on my Facebook or in the Facebook group. It's a 1-minute video, 1 minute and 20 seconds. It's about the gorilla, and it's called, it was called about your attention. I forgot the name. Hold on. It's a selective attention test. Basically, there are a few people in the white t-shirts and a few people in the black t-shirts, and they're passing the basketball. The white people pass it to each other, and the black team also passes the basketball to each other. So you have to pay attention to only the white team passing it to each other, and you count how many passes they made. So while you're putting all of your attention on the white team and their basketball passes, you don't pay attention to anything else what's going on. There's actually a life-size person wearing a gorilla outfit comes out through the circle and leaves the circle. And when you watch it the first time and you don't know what to expect, so if you hear this call, I want you to show this 1.5-minute video to anybody who is not aware and see their reaction if they saw the gorilla or not, because once you know that there's a gorilla, you will notice the gorilla. But because you don't know that, you don't notice it. And what happens is that our reticular activating system is at work. And what it is the abbreviation is RAS, and it's a bundle of nerves in our brain stem that filters out unnecessary information so that the important stuff gets through. And that is the reason you learn a new word and then you start hearing it everywhere. Or you buy a new car and you start seeing the same car everywhere. Or you want a particular shoes and you see them everywhere. And it's the same way that seeks information that validates your beliefs. And you need to realize that everything we believe, it might not be 100% true. It's all in our beliefs are created, like I mentioned, from all the events and information that is our brains accept from the parents and all the activities that we watch. And it might not be true. So if you believe, for example, that money is really, really hard to make, or if you believe a certain belief, that might not necessarily be true, especially for someone who grew up with a different family, with a different culture, with a different money around them. They have a completely different set of beliefs, and they believe money comes easy, and they're very creative. And if you believe that you're very dumb and not creative and you can't really do that, but maybe if you go back in your mind and actually discover that the teacher told you in the third grade that your drawing basically was not creative, or you played piano and it really was a bad music that you did. So from that you accepted the belief from authority that you are not very good at music, or you're not very good at drawing, and you carry that belief forever. However, it's like in Russia, a lot of the women, they have very, very poor self-esteem, because in our culture, it's very rude to give compliments to the child. Like when a girl is growing up or a boy is growing up, if somebody says good compliments all the time, in the culture, everybody starts to spit on the side and then knock on the wood and saying, don't jinx it, don't jinx it. So basically, we don't hear a lot of compliments. And whenever we do something good, the parents are usually saying, well, it's nice, but it could be better. And there's like almost felt like not enough praise all the time, where I see a lot of the people in American culture where they are praised, even they drew a weird circle and it doesn't even look good, but the parent is praising the child and saying, oh my gosh, great job, and claps and gives them an award. So it creates a different emotion, it creates a different feeling on what they believe or how many things they can achieve themselves and things like that. So I wanted to go a little bit over. So I already said that emotions create our neurological pathways, and the longer we carry those emotions, and those emotions could be jealousy, could be fear, could be pain, could be sadness. Any different emotions create that neurological sadness, and it basically creates a loop. And to break out from it, I already said meditation and the rubber band exercise helped me. But you have to realize that a lot of the times when people desire something, they desire it because they want to feel better. And they feel like when they get the certain thing, they would feel better and more joyful. However, I will tell you a secret that you can start feel better and feel joyful without actually physically acquiring the thing that you would like. And you can start visualizing and sitting down and slowing down, like I said in your meditation, and trying to believe, let's say, how would I feel if I already had the thing that I want? And I'm trying to create a feeling of already having it. And how would you know that it's true? Ask your question, how would I know that it's true? You would visualize how you would feel when people are saying, congratulations, great job, you got the car that you wanted, or how would you feel driving it, and somebody in the seat next to you says, great smooth ride, or whatever. So you need the practice, the feeling of what you would feel when you already achieved that goal. So I'll give you a few examples. When I started out, I really wanted a Tesla, a car, and I would see all of these different Teslas around me, and even though it was outside my price range, I would see every Tesla on the car, and I would tell my kids, oh, look at Tesla, Tesla, Tesla. I went to the showroom, I sat in it, I felt it, I took videos. Then the next step I took is I rented it for a day, and I created an emotion of what it would feel to own it. And I would visualize having it and driving it, and how people would react, and how my kids would be joyful, and and over a period of time I was doing that, and then there are different events happened where it was not monetary possible, but then some events like my reticular activating system started looking for possible solutions, or how I could get for not, a retail price when they first came out, and how I would get, like, I used Tesla for a certain color that I wanted that was not really sellable, and it was a signature edition. And I discovered an ad, and it was in Chicago, and I flew out there, and I practically got the car in perfect condition for a third of the cost that the new car would cost. And so it's definitely possible. Then I started practicing this. How would I feel if I had a certain house that I wanted? And I would start going to those houses and feel which features I liked and which features I didn't, and what would make my kids' life and my life more comfortable, and I wasn't able to qualify for a loan because of my bankruptcy. I was still rebuilding my credit history. However, a few years passed by, and I was able to save up enough money with Asante Organics and rebuilding my credit history, where I was able to apply and get a loan. And then a few years later, now I'm purchasing, my fifth property. So everything that I would like to have, I visualize and create a feeling first, and then all of a sudden different programs come up, or different opportunities come up where it wouldn't necessarily be possible, like, for example, in a competitive market, or certain things where everybody's like overpaying and saying, oh no, you cannot get a house in that area for that much. And I was able to create all of that into my existence, because whenever you focus on paid attention to something, you will start seeing advertising, or you will start seeing, emails, or whatever comes up or you will hear it on the news, or you will hear it, because that information all of a sudden becomes important to you. And that's where Selective attention with the gorilla test comes into play, because you will start realizing that we have all these different opportunities, but because we don't even pay attention, or we don't believe it's possible, we don't even take it seriously, and it never comes into our life. And when we are in a state of visualization, and we are in a state of feeling the feeling of what it would have to have that certain particular thing, our brain cannot make the difference if it actually happens to us, or if we're just daydreaming about it. And they've done test and test again, where people practice sports, where people practice piano lessons and competitions and things like that in their mind, and they get hooked up with all of these different wires, and they're doing the measurements of their brain waves, and they're doing the measurements of their heart racing, and they're doing all these different tests, how the brain neurological connections fire when we are experiencing something, and by just visualizing that versus actually experiencing that. So, for example, they did a talk where a lady was standing on stage, and she was talking about, imagine a lemon. Imagine that you're cutting this juicy lemon. Imagine biting into a lemon, and people would all salivate, and because they didn't even have a lemon, but because they were imagining it so vividly, their body started to produce saliva, and their body started to produce different hormones and different, things, where it's the same thing, where you, by visualizing certain things ahead of time before it actually happens, what you do is you create an uncomfortable beginning of an uncomfortable and unfamiliar feeling for you. But the more you practice, the more it becomes familiar, and then it becomes a second nature for you. So when you first start to create a new habit, usually people are on autopilot, and they think the same thoughts, they do the same things, they create the same decisions, and they are always in a loop. So when you're trying to break out and you feel like you're meant for more, and you want to, let's say you want to break out and create more success for yourself. So you would think, okay, so what happened for me is I would start to, when I had only like 4 people on my team, I would start and visualize I have a big team, I'm impacting so many people. I woke up one day and I had a dream that I would be on stage sharing my story, inspiring so many people. And at that time, I was just starting to doing videos, and the first few videos I made, I was red. I was practically couldn't talk. I was, bumbling every word I had, and my ex-husband was laughing at me and saying, don't even waste your time. Nobody's going to watch your videos. What are you doing? So he was actually practically like talking me out of it, where I saw a vision of myself. No matter what, my story is empowering. I will inspire people. And for me, without education, I'm going to talk on stages and give people hope that can be done. And I saw it so vividly. I started creating videos, and those videos were really bad at the beginning. And then I would look back at them and I was like, okay, I need to improve here. And then a year went by and I saw a night and day in confidence in everything, how I was phrasing words. And I couldn't even phrase nothing at the beginning. So I would listen to some speaker and I would write down their speech word for word on a piece of paper, and then I would memorize it as if it was a poem, like you were memorizing poems in school. And then whenever I had to do a first webinar, I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I was shaking. I couldn't come up, and then when we started the webinar, there was technical difficulties and I was like sounding like a robot, and there were so many problems and obstacles, and I overcame that. And the more I did it, the more I practiced, the better I got. And you can do it as well. And the best thing is that you can practice is imperfect action, because a lot of the time we think that everything has to be perfect, and that time will never come. And what helped me is looking at all the successful people, and if I could find the videos of them when they first started and how they talked or how they were speaking on stage and how they were like very shy and insecure, it helped me, see them where they started and see them now where they had developed such a great presentation and they developed such a great speech and everything. So everything boils down to start visualizing the version of you, what you want to become, and start to feel the feeling of the person, how that feeling would feel. You don't have to share with people what you're doing. You just need to kind of set aside a few minutes a day, maybe the best time to do it before you go to bed, so that you can start feeling the feeling of the person you want to become, or having the thing that you are actually looking to acquire, and and visualize that thing for a few minutes before you go to bed, and lay down and start falling asleep feeling a joy of having it, and feeling and hearing people how they would praise you and say, great job, you deserve it so much, we always thought you would be able to get it, and things like that, and how people would look at you, how people would clap, how your parents would say how you are so they're so proud of you. And falling asleep with that particular feeling creates all night. Your subconscious would work on it, and it will start creating new patterns in your neurological waves and how your mind is working. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it, and then it becomes a second nature, and you just don't notice. You always see a positive thing in every situation. And that's how I changed my life. It created such great results for me. Everything I ever wanted, I manifested. And using certain words in your vocabulary, it's very, very important. I completely eliminated watching the news. I completely eliminated the words you're broke, you're struggling, different words that don't they don't create any positive effect in your life. A lot of people say a lot of things. They're saying, I'm sick of this or I'm sick of that, and they create like they don't even know that they're saying those words. And every time I hear somebody saying that, I say, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. So you have to catch yourself even saying the words that you're using every day, or like, I'm so disgusted, or I'm so tired, or I'm sick of this, and I'm constantly broken, I'm struggling, and I can't do this, and this and that. Never use those words. Create different words, and it will change your life. And I want to thank every single one of you for joining me tonight, and I hope this call has been helpful, and I would love to hear your feedback in the Facebook group, or when I post this call this call will be recorded and posted on the SoundCloud. So thank you so much, every single one of you, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.